Hello everyone and welcome back to Western Flavors. 18 months have passed since Borden's death, and the Fleming family has found ways to honor his memory while continuing to live. They've celebrated his birthday, planted a courage tree where ribbons mark brave moments, and established Sunday traditions of writing letters to Ty. Amy has learned to navigate grief's complicated landscape, finding joy without guilt, remembering without being paralyzed, moving forward while keeping Ty's presence alive in their daily lives. 5-year-old Lindy asks questions with increasing frequency and complexity, her understanding of death and loss evolving as she grows. Today's episode brings a question that will shake Amy to her core, forcing her to confront possibilities she hasn't allowed herself to consider and truths she doesn't know how to explain to a child. If you're following this journey through grief, healing, and the complicated nature of love after loss, please hit that like button and subscribe. Today, we witness Amy face one of the hardest conversations a widowed parent can have, and discover that sometimes the most honest answers are also the most difficult. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Heartland Ranch, painting everything in warm golden tones. Amy stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the blue dress she'd chosen for Lou's friend's wedding. It had been a long time since she'd dressed up for anything, and the unfamiliar feeling of wearing heels and having her hair styled made her feel like she was playing dress-up, pretending to be someone she no longer was.
Amy, are you almost ready? We need to leave in 10 minutes.
Coming.
Amy took one last look at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. For the past 18 months, she'd lived in jeans and work boots, her hair usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, her focus on horses and Lindy and getting through each day. This dressed-up version of herself felt foreign, like wearing a costume of her old life. She found Lindy downstairs with Lou, and her heart melted at the sight of her daughter. 5-year-old Lindy wore a pale pink dress with flowers embroidered on the bodice, her blonde hair braided with ribbon woven through it. She looked so grown up, so beautiful, so heartbreakingly like Ty around the eyes.
Look at you. You're absolutely gorgeous, sweetie.
You look pretty too, Mama, like a princess.
We all clean up pretty well when we try. Peter's meeting us at the venue with Katie. Ready to go?
The wedding was being held at a beautiful outdoor venue about 30 minutes from Heartland. Rolling lawns, white chairs arranged in neat rows, flowers everywhere creating bursts of color against the green grass. Lou's friend Sarah was marrying her longtime partner, and the joy radiating from the couple was palpable even during the pre-ceremony preparations. Amy, Lou, and Lindy found their seats near the middle of the assembled guests. Peter was already there with 11-year-old Katie, and Amy felt a familiar pang watching her sister's family sitting together, complete, intact, whole. Peter's hand rested casually on Lou's shoulder, a gesture of comfortable intimacy that spoke of years together, of partnership, of the kind of everyday closeness Amy no longer had. Mama, what's happening?
We're at a wedding. Remember? Sarah and Michael are getting married. They're gonna make promises to each other in front of all these people.
Like a party?
Sort of. It's a celebration of them deciding to be together forever.
The ceremony began with music playing and the wedding party making their way down the aisle. Lindy watched with rapt attention, fascinated by the bridesmaids' dresses, the flower arrangements, the solemnity of the occasion. When the bride appeared walking down the aisle in her white gown, Lindy gasped with delight. She looks like a princess.
She does, doesn't she?
Amy watched the ceremony unfold, trying to focus on Sarah and Michael's happiness, but finding her mind drifting to her own wedding day. She and Ty had gotten married right here at Heartland, under the big oak tree Jack now called the courage tree. It had been simple, intimate, perfect. Amy in a flowing white dress, Ty in a suit that he'd been adorably uncomfortable wearing, both of them unable to stop smiling as they'd promised forever to each other. Forever had turned out to be much shorter than either of them had anticipated. The officiant spoke about love, commitment, partnership, about choosing each other every day. About building a life together through joy and sorrow, through triumph and challenge. Amy felt tears prick her eyes, mourning not just Ty but the future they'd been building, the decades they should have had together. Mama, why are you crying?
Just happy tears, baby. Weddings make people emotional sometimes.
But Lindy was perceptive, even at 5. She slipped her small hand into Amy's and squeezed, offering comfort in the way children do when they sense something is wrong but don't quite understand what. After the ceremony, the reception began with cocktails on the lawn, followed by dinner under a large tent strung with twinkling lights. Amy found herself surrounded by couples Lou and Peter, other friends with their spouses, even elderly couples who'd been married for decades. She was acutely aware of her single status, of being the only adult there without a partner, of the empty space beside her where Ty should have been. "Amy, I'm so glad you could make it. How are you doing?"
I'm good. The ceremony was beautiful. Congratulations.
"Thank you. I know this must be hard for you. Being at a wedding after, but seeing you makes me feel so delighted."
I'm glad you did. You and Michael deserve to be celebrated, and I'm genuinely happy for you.
It was true, mostly. Amy was happy for Sarah, but happiness for others and sadness for yourself could coexist, and right now both emotions were fighting for dominance in her chest. During dinner, Lindy sat beside Amy, carefully eating her chicken and vegetables while watching the crowd with interest. She seemed particularly fascinated by the couple's dancing, by the way people held each other and moved together to the music. "Mama, did you and Daddy get married like this?" The question came out of nowhere, innocent and devastating. Amy set down her fork, turning to give Lindy her full attention.
We did get married, yes, but it was different from this. We got married at Heartland, under the big tree, the one we now call the Courage Tree. It was smaller, just our family and close friends. But it was special.
"Did you wear a white dress like that lady?"
I did. And Daddy wore a suit. He was very handsome.
"I wish I could have seen it."
I know, baby.
Lindy processed this information with the serious concentration that sometimes crossed her face, making her look older than her 5 years. "Mama, will you marry someone else one day?" The world seemed to stop. Amy felt like all the air had been sucked out of the tent, like everyone around them had frozen mid-conversation to wait for her answer. Lou, sitting across the table, looked up sharply, her eyes wide with concern. Peter glanced between the sisters, clearly uncomfortable with the sudden tension.
That's a big question, Lindy. Where did that come from?
"Everyone here has someone. You don't have Daddy anymore. So will you get a new someone? Will you get married again?" Amy's throat closed up, her mind racing through possible responses and finding none that felt adequate. How did you explain this to a 5-year-old? How did you address the possibility of future love without making your child feel like you were trying to replace their father?
Sweetie, right now Mama isn't thinking about that. I still love Daddy very much, and I miss him every day.
But what about later, when I'm bigger?
I don't know what will happen later. Can we talk about this more when we get home? This is Sarah and Michael's special day. We should focus on celebrating them.
Lindy nodded, seemingly satisfied with the postponement, but Amy's heart continued to race. The question hung between them for the rest of the reception, coloring every interaction, every observation, every moment. Amy watched couples dance and wondered if she'd ever dance with someone again. She watched the bride and groom feed each other cake and remembered doing the same thing with Ty, both of them laughing when he'd gotten frosting on her nose. The drive home was quiet. Lindy dozed in the back seat, while Amy's mind churned with thoughts she'd been avoiding for 18 months. She'd been so focused on grief, on healing, on helping Lindy adjust to life without Ty, that she hadn't allowed herself to think about her own future, about the possibility that someday, years from now, she might meet someone, that she might want companionship again, partnership, maybe even love. The thought felt like betrayal, like she was already planning to replace Ty before his memory had even faded. Back at Heartland, Amy carried sleeping Lindy inside and tucked her into bed, careful not to wake her. She stood in her daughter's doorway for a long moment, watching her sleep, wondering what thoughts were going through that developing mind, what fears the wedding had stirred up. Downstairs, she found Jack sitting at the kitchen table with his evening coffee, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed some ranch paperwork.
How was the wedding?
Beautiful and complicated.
Complicated how?
Amy sat down across from her grandfather, suddenly exhausted by the weight of everything she'd been carrying.
Lindy asked me if I'm going to marry someone else one day.
Jack set down his pen, giving Amy his full attention with that patient, understanding expression that had comforted her through countless crises over the years.
And what did you tell her?
I didn't know what to tell her. I deflected, said we'd talk about it later. But Grandpa, I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know what to say.
What's making it so hard?
Everything. How do I tell my 5-year-old that yes, maybe someday I might want to be with someone again without making her think I'm trying to replace her father? How do I even think about that possibility without feeling like I'm betraying Ty? It's only been 18 months. Isn't it too soon to even consider this?
Consider what, exactly? Are you thinking about dating someone?
No. God, no. I'm not ready for that. I can't even imagine being ready for that. But Lindy asked the question, and I realized I've been avoiding even thinking about it. What does my future look like, Grandpa? Do I spend the next 50 years alone? Is that what honoring Ty means?
Jack reached across the table and took Amy's hand in his weathered one.
When Lindy died, I thought my life was over. We'd been together since we were teenagers. She was everything to me. For a long time after she passed, I couldn't imagine ever being with anyone else. The thought felt wrong, like I'd be cheating on her memory.
But you did date others, didn't you? I remember Mom mentioning it once.
I did. Years later, when the grief wasn't quite so sharp, I met a woman named Dorothy at a rodeo. She was kind, funny, and she made me laugh for the first time in years. We dated for a while. It didn't work out long term, but for those months, I was happy. And you know what? That happiness didn't diminish what I'd had with your grandmother. Loving Dorothy even just a little, even just for that time, didn't make me love Lindy any less.
How did you know it was okay to move forward like that?
I asked myself what Lindy would want for me, and I knew deep in my bones that she'd want me to be happy. She wouldn't want me to spend the rest of my life alone and grieving. She loved me too much to want that for me.
That's the thing, though. I know intellectually that Ty would want me to be happy. He'd probably be angry if he knew I was even questioning this. But knowing that and feeling okay about it are two very different things.
Amy, you don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't have to decide today whether you'll ever date again or marry again or any of that. All you have to do is be honest with Lindy about the fact that you don't know, and that not knowing is okay.
They sat in comfortable silence for a while, Jack's presence a steadying force in the turbulence of Amy's emotions. Finally, Amy went upstairs to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. She lay awake thinking about Lindy's question, about her own future, about the impossible balance between honoring the past and remaining open to whatever came next. The next morning, a new client arrived at Heartland, a woman named Claire Mitchell with her teenage daughter Hannah and their horse, a beautiful bay mare. Claire looked to be in her early 40s, with tired eyes that spoke of carrying heavy burdens. "Thank you for seeing us." Willow has been acting out lately, refusing jumps she used to take easily, spooking at nothing, generally anxious and unsettled. The vet says there's nothing physically wrong. I'm hoping you can help.
I'll do my best. Tell me about Willow's history.
As Claire explained the mare's background, Amy noticed Hannah standing apart from her mother, arms crossed, radiating hostility. The teenage girl, maybe 15 or 16, wouldn't make eye contact and kept her distance from both Claire and Willow.
Is Hannah usually involved with Willow's care?
She used to be. Willow was actually her horse, a gift from her father. But lately Hannah won't come near her, won't help with anything horse-related. It's been difficult. The tension between mother and daughter was palpable. Amy decided to work with Willow first, giving everyone time to settle in and assess the situation. The mare was indeed anxious, her ears constantly moving, her body tense, clearly stressed about something. Over the next hour, Amy observed Willow carefully, watching her body language, testing her reactions to various stimuli. The horse wasn't afraid of anything specific. It was a generalized anxiety, like she was picking up on emotional turmoil from her humans and manifesting it in her own behavior. During a break, Amy found Hannah sitting alone by the barn, staring at her phone but clearly not really looking at it.
Mind if I sit?
Hannah shrugged, which Amy took as reluctant permission. She sat down beside the teenager, letting silence stretch between them for a moment.
Willow's a beautiful horse. Your mom said she was a gift from your father.
Yeah, 2 years before he died. The words were clipped, angry, defensive. Amy recognized the tone, grief wrapped in hostility, pain manifesting as rage.
I'm sorry for your loss. Losing a parent is incredibly hard.
Everyone says that. Everyone's so sorry. But nobody actually understands.
You're right. Everyone's loss is different. Want to tell me about him?
For a moment, Amy thought Hannah would refuse. But then, like a dam breaking, the words came pouring out. He was amazing, funny, kind, always there when I needed him. He taught me to ride, helped me train Willow, came to every single one of my shows. And then he got sick, and 3 months later he was gone, and now it's just me and Mom, and she's already moving on. Amy's stomach tightened, understanding suddenly clicking into place.
Moving on how?
She's dating someone. Started about 6 months ago. This guy named David, who's nice enough, I guess. But he's not my dad. And Mom's always talking about him, always making plans with him, and it's like she's just forgotten Dad ever existed. Like 2 years is enough time to just replace him and move on with her life. The pain in Hannah's voice was raw and real, and Amy felt an echo of it in her own chest. This was her future, potentially. This conversation she might have with Lindy someday if Amy ever did meet someone new.
Have you talked to your mom about how you feel?
She wouldn't understand. She's happy with David. I don't want to ruin that for her, but I also can't stand being around them. Can't stand pretending I'm okay with it when I'm not.
So you're avoiding the horse your father gave you because being around Willow reminds you of him, and that reminds you of how much has changed.
Hannah's eyes filled with tears. I know it's not Willow's fault. I know I should still take care of her. But every time I look at her, I remember Dad teaching me to ride her, remember him at my shows cheering me on, remember everything we had and everything I lost. And then I go home and David's there, sitting in Dad's chair, using Dad's coffee mug, and it's like Dad's being erased. Amy's heart ached for this girl, for the impossible position she was in, for the grief and fear all tangled up together.
Can I tell you something? My husband died 18 months ago. I have a 5-year-old daughter. And yesterday at a wedding, my daughter asked me if I'm going to marry someone else one day.
Hannah looked up, attention fully engaged now. What did you tell her?
I didn't know what to tell her. I still don't. I'm not dating anyone. I'm not even thinking about dating anyone. But she asked the question, and I realized I've been avoiding thinking about my own future because I'm terrified of exactly what you're feeling, that moving forward means erasing the past, that loving someone new means loving my husband less.
But it does mean that, doesn't it? If Mom loves David, doesn't that mean she didn't really love Dad? Or that she's forgotten him?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. The heart doesn't run out of room, Hannah. Your mom can love David and still love your father. Those aren't contradictory things.
But what about Dad? What about his memory? If Mom replaces him with David, then what happens to everything Dad was?
Nothing happens to it. Your father's memory doesn't disappear because your mother finds happiness again. He's still your father. He still taught you to ride. He still loved you. Nothing changes that.
But even as Amy said the words, she wondered if she believed them herself. Would dating someone new feel like betraying Ty? Would bringing someone into their lives mean diminishing Ty's place in their family? That evening, after Claire and Hannah left with plans to return later in the week, Amy found herself thinking about the conversation with Hannah, about all the ways grief complicated everything, about how there were no easy answers to impossible questions. She found Lindy playing with her toys in the living room, the decorated memory box of letters to Ty sitting nearby on the shelf where it always lived.
Lindy, can we talk about the question you asked at the wedding?
Lindy set down her toys immediately, her face becoming serious. She climbed onto the couch beside Amy, sitting close. About you marrying someone else?
Yes. I want to give you a real answer, even though it's complicated. Is that okay?
Okay. Amy took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully.
Right now, Mama isn't thinking about marrying anyone. I still love Daddy very much, and I miss him every single day. But you asked about someday, when you're older, and I want to be honest with you about that.
So will you, someday?
I don't know, baby. I really don't. Maybe yes, maybe no. What I do know is that if I ever did meet someone, and that's a very big if, and it would be many, many years from now, it wouldn't mean I stopped loving Daddy. It wouldn't mean I was trying to replace him.
But he'd be a new daddy, right? The new person?
No, that's the important part. Nobody could ever replace Daddy. Daddy is your father, always and forever. If Mama ever did meet someone new, that person would be someone else, someone different, but not your daddy. You already have a daddy, and nothing changes that.
Would you love the new person more than Daddy? Amy felt tears prick her eyes at the question, at the fear underlying it.
No, sweetheart. Here's the thing about love, it doesn't run out. It's not like you only have so much, and once you use it up, it's gone. You can love more than one person at the same time. Like how you love me, and you love Auntie Lou, and you love Great-Grandpa Jack. Loving all of us doesn't mean you love each person less, right?
Right.
It's the same with this. If Mama ever did care about someone new someday, it wouldn't make me love Daddy less. Daddy was my first love. He's the person who taught me what real love means. He gave me you, which is the most precious gift anyone ever gave me. Nothing could ever change how important he is to me and to you.
But Mama, would Daddy be sad? If you married someone new? Would he be mad? This was the question that had been eating at Amy since the wedding. She'd been thinking about it all night, all morning. And then she'd remembered something, a conversation she and Ty had years ago, before they were even married, after a friend's parent had passed away.
Wait here for just a minute, okay?
Amy went upstairs to Ty's office, the room she'd preserved mostly as he'd left it, though she'd added the memory box to the desk and placed some of Lindy's drawings on the walls. She opened the bottom desk drawer and pulled out a folder of old letters and notes. She'd been looking through it a few weeks ago, and she remembered seeing something there, a letter Ty had written to her during one of their brief separations early in their relationship. Most of it was typical love letter material, how much he missed her, how much he wanted to be with her. But near the end, there was a paragraph that had seemed melodramatic at the time, but now felt prophetic. Amy carried the letter back downstairs and sat beside Lindy again.
I want to read you something. Daddy wrote to me a long time ago, before you were born. Is that okay?
Okay. Amy's voice shook slightly as she read.
Amy, I know this sounds morbid, but I need you to know something. If anything ever happens to me, if I get sick, or have an accident, or whatever, I don't want you to spend the rest of your life alone. I want you to find happiness again. I want you to laugh, to love, to have a full life. That's not what I'd want for you. Staying alone and sad forever. Promise me that if the worst happens, you'll let yourself be happy again. That's what I'd want. That's what love means, wanting the best for someone, even if you can't be there to give it to them yourself.
Lindy listened carefully, her small face thoughtful. Daddy wrote that?
He did. I'd almost forgotten about it until you asked your question. But reading it again, Daddy made it very clear. He wouldn't be mad if I found happiness again someday. He'd actually want that for me.
Because he loves you?
Exactly. Because he loves me. And because he loves you. And he'd want you to have a happy mama, even if he can't be here to make me happy himself.
Lindy was quiet for a moment, processing this information with the seriousness she sometimes showed, making her seem older than her 5 years. Mama, I don't want a new daddy, but I don't want you to be sad forever either. Amy pulled Lindy into her arms, holding her close, breathing in the little girl's scent of her shampoo in the outdoors.
I won't be sad forever, baby. I'm already less sad than I was a year ago. And you know what? Right now, you and me and Great-Grandpa Jack and Auntie Lou and all our family, we're enough. We're more than enough. I don't need anyone else to be happy. I have you, and that makes me happy every single day.
But maybe someday, when I'm bigger?
Maybe someday. But if that day comes, and I don't know if it will, we'll talk about it together. You and me, and we'll make sure that anyone new in our lives understands that Daddy is still important, still loved, still part of our family. Okay.
Okay, Mama, can we write a letter to Daddy? And tell him we talked about this? The suggestion made Amy's heart swell with love for her wise, compassionate daughter.
That's a perfect idea.
They got out paper and crayons, and together they wrote a letter to Ty. Lindy drew pictures while Amy wrote out what they discussed, making it clear to Ty and to themselves that talking about the possibility of future love didn't mean they were forgetting him or diminishing what he meant to them. The next day, Claire returned with Hannah for another session with Willow. But this time, Amy asked if she could speak with both of them together before working with the horse.
I've been thinking about what you told me, Hannah, about your mom dating David, about feeling like your father is being replaced. And I think Willow's anxiety is connected to your emotions. Horses are incredibly perceptive. They pick up on our feelings and mirror them back to us.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that before we can help Willow, we need to help Hannah and Claire work through what's really happening between them.
Hannah looked panicked, like she might bolt. I don't want to.
Just hear me out. Hannah, I think you're not mad that your mom is dating David. I think you're scared. You're scared that your father will be forgotten, that his place in your family will be erased, that moving forward means leaving him behind.
Hannah's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't deny it.
And Claire, I think you're trying to balance your own healing with being sensitive to Hannah's grief. But by not talking about it directly, you're both making assumptions about what the other one thinks and feels.
Hannah, is that true? Are you scared I'm forgetting Dad? The dam broke. Hannah started crying, really crying, and after a moment's hesitation, Claire wrapped her arms around her daughter. I don't want to forget him, Mom. I don't want his pictures to come down, or his stories to stop being told, or for David to just take his place. Like he was never here. Oh, honey, no. That's not what's happening. David isn't replacing your father. He couldn't if he tried. Your dad was. He was everything to me for 20 years. He gave me you, which is the most precious gift of my life. Nothing about dating David changes that.
Can I share something? Something my husband wrote before he died?
She told them about Ty's letter, about his wish that Amy find happiness again if anything happened to him, about how loving someone new doesn't diminish love for someone gone. Your father told me something similar, Hannah. When he knew he was dying, one of the last conversations we had was about this. He made me promise I wouldn't spend the rest of my life alone. He said I was too young, too full of life to shut myself off from happiness. At the time, I couldn't imagine ever wanting anyone else. But 2 years later, I met David, and he makes me smile. That doesn't mean I love your father less. It means I'm still living, still growing, still open to whatever life brings. But what about Dad's memory? What about making sure people remember him?
That's not your responsibility, Hannah, or your mother's. Your father's memory lives in both of you, in the love you have for him, in the person you're becoming because he was your father. That doesn't disappear because your mother finds companionship again.
Over the next hour, with Amy's gentle guidance, Claire and Hannah talked honestly about their fears, their grief, and their different approaches to healing. It wasn't a complete resolution, these conversations never are, but it was a beginning. An understanding that they could honor the past while remaining open to the future, that moving forward didn't mean leaving anyone behind. And remarkably, when Hannah approached Willow after that conversation, the mare's anxiety had noticeably decreased. The horse was still cautious, still processing, but the acute stress was gone. Because the human stress that had been feeding it was starting to resolve. That night, after Lindy was asleep, Amy sat on the porch with Jack, both of them holding coffee and watching the stars emerge.
How are you feeling after all of this?
Uncertain, but in a good way, if that makes sense. I don't know what my future looks like, but I'm starting to be okay with not knowing.
That's growth, Amy. Real growth.
Lindy asked if Ty would be mad, if I found someone new someday. And I realized he wouldn't be. He'd want me to be happy, to live fully, to not spend the next 50 years alone out of some misplaced sense of loyalty.
Ty loved you enough to want the best for you, even if he couldn't be here to give it to you himself.
I'm not ready. I want to be clear about that. I'm not looking for anyone. I'm not interested in dating. The thought of being with someone who isn't Ty still feels impossible.
And that's okay too. There's no timeline for this, Amy. No deadline by which you have to move forward. You take all the time you need.
But if someday, and I mean years from now, if I met someone who made me smile, who was kind to Lindy, who understood that Ty would always be part of our family, would that be okay? Would I be betraying Ty's memory?
Amy, loving again wouldn't betray Ty. It would honor him. It would honor the fact that he taught you how to love, how to be a partner, how to build a life with someone. Those lessons don't disappear because Ty's gone. And using them to build happiness again? That's not betrayal. That's legacy.
They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them, the sounds of Heartland familiar and soothing. Inside, Lindy slept peacefully, no longer burdened by fears about replacement or erasure. On a shelf in the living room, the memory box sat proudly, filled with letters to Ty that proved love doesn't end with death. In the yard, the courage tree stood with its collection of colorful ribbons marking brave moments. And Amy sat on the porch, not knowing what her future held, but finally okay with that uncertainty. Wherever the road ahead led, she'd walk it with Ty's memory honored, Lindy's well-being protected, and her own heart slowly, carefully, learning to remain open to whatever possibilities life might bring. Because that's what Ty would want. And in the end, that was all that mattered. That concludes today's episode of Heartland. We witnessed Amy confront one of the most difficult questions a widowed parent can face: will you marry someone else someday? Lindy's innocent inquiry at Lou's friend's wedding forced Amy to examine possibilities she'd been avoiding, futures she hadn't allowed herself to consider. The parallel story of Claire and Hannah provided crucial insight. Teenage Hannah's hostility toward her mother's new relationship wasn't about the relationship itself, but about fear that her father would be forgotten, erased, replaced. This fear mirrored Lindy's own concerns and gave Amy a window into her daughter's heart. Through honest conversations, through reading Ty's old letter about wanting Amy to find happiness again, through visiting his grave and making promises about keeping his memory alive, Amy and Lindy navigated these impossible waters together. The episode taught us that love doesn't run out, that the heart doesn't have limited capacity, that loving someone new doesn't diminish love for someone gone. We learned that honoring the dead doesn't mean staying frozen in grief forever. Sometimes it means carrying their lessons forward into new relationships, new possibilities, new futures. Amy doesn't have answers about whether she'll ever love again, but she's no longer paralyzed by guilt about the possibility. She's given herself permission to remain uncertain, to not know, to let the future unfold without forcing decisions before they're necessary. The question remains, will Amy eventually meet someone new? How will Lindy handle it if that day comes? What would it look like for the Fleming family to expand to include someone new while still honoring Ty's irreplaceable place in their lives? Join us next time to continue this journey. If you enjoyed this emotionally complex episode about love after loss and the possibility of happiness after grief, please like and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, how do you feel about the possibility of widowed people finding love again? What would you want for someone you loved if you were gone? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, this is Western Flavors.